The moment of truth. Do we have any compression? Unfortunately, I haven't got a crank for this engine yet, so I'm going to just have to turn it over by hand and see what we get. But hopefully, it'll give us something. And I mean, so long as we get something, then we're kind of good. But let's spin her over and see what happens. Right. Given the fact that I actually did hear the tiniest little hiss of air when I closed that off, I would suggest that we actually have got literally no compression. So, yeah. I'd say the valves are probably they need to be reseated, or they're held slightly open, corrosion on the seats. Piston rings are probably, like, the barrel could be scored or stepped or anything, so we just have to see when we get into it. I'm only a few days into this project and already the garage is starting to get a bit cluttered with Lister parts all over the place, and I picked up a few tools. Got myself a valve spring compressor, a valve lapping plunger with the compound, and a honing tool as well too. So when it comes to it, we should have everything we need to start trying to figure out why it's not getting enough compression. So yeah, this is where we're at now. I'm still on the subject of the carburettor. Basically what we have is this lad here, okay? This disc is turning independently of the shaft. So I can't get that free. I've tried it with a flathead screwdriver, I've tried it with an impact screwdriver, I've tried various different methods. So next step, what we're going to do is we're going to weld this onto this, and I'm going to try and weld it specifically just to the shaft, and then use the 13mm spanner to wang it off, and then afterwards we should be able to grind or knock that off then, and be left with the disc still intact and looking fairly original. So the only problem with all of this idea, it sounds fantastic in principle, the practicalities of it is that I am absolutely useless at welding, but no better time to learn, so we'll see how we fare out. Ta-da! I did it! So, that's out. That's the last piece of the puzzle for the carburettor. In the end, I had to weld the disc straight onto the shaft because I tried a couple of times and couldn't get the nut to weld directly onto the shaft. So it's done now anyway. What I'll do is I'll dress that up now, and it'll look fine. You know, I mean, what I can do is I can grind back my pigeon crap welding and make that look at least semi-presentable, and it'll be functional again. And actually the needle doesn't even look that bad. It looks reasonable enough. I'd say that'll probably clean up all right. And there's the spring and the little thingy that goes underneath the disc that makes a click beside it. You'll see the little lug that stops the disc from turning too far was broken off, so there's not much we can do about that. I suppose I could put a tiny little nut and bolt in there just to stop it turning too far, but that's further down the line. Anyway, at least now we have the carburettor apart, so I've ordered all the parts to rebuild it. I have them coming from stationaryengineparts.com, so they should be arriving probably late next week, and we'll move along with it then. I think that's good enough, don't you? We'll like once that kind of dulls down, it's steel obviously, it's going to rust a little bit. It'll dull down and it'll look a lot more in keeping with the rest of the engine. Okay, so my box of goodies arrived. So let's have a look and see what we have. Crank handle, miscellaneous bag of bits, which we will go through now in a minute. The exhaust. So that's it, a generic pepper pot style exhaust, but I'll need to get a length of pipe made up to attach it to the engine. Let's get all that out of there. I'm not much of an eco warrior, but I do like the recyclable packaging in fairness. That is the paint, so that's great, have that. And what I'm going to assume are gaskets, so we'll have a look inside them now in a minute as well too. So, anyway, starting with the little bag of bits, So there is the points cover for the magneto. We have fibre washers, Whitworth bolts, because Whitworth. I don't have any stuff by any Whitworth stuff at all, and it's hard to get. There is a wing nut for the oil filler. I thought I had ordered the carb air valve spring, but that is far too small, so I might have ordered the wrong thing there. Anyway, the other one's still serviceable. There's the retainer for the points cover, so that holds that in place, and a new condenser, of course. Spark plug. It's a spark plug there, so just in case you were in any doubts. Drain valve. More Whitworth bolts. They're the ones for holding the mag in place. Governor spring attachment, and a set of points. So we have lots of bits and pieces. Let's assume they're gaskets for the moment. I'm not going to open them until I need to open them. What I'll do is I'll throw everything back into the box. Next thing to do is to crank over the engine and see if we get a bit of compression, because yeah, so far we haven't got any, but now that I actually have a crank handle I can turn it a bit faster and we'll see how we get on. Right, so in the hunt for compression, I have the spark plug in at the moment, so straight away that is the compression stroke, and you can hear the compression leaking out of the exhaust port there, so we most definitely have a leaking valve. So the way I know is if you look at where so you can see the valves are closed, right? Yeah. So what I'm hoping will happen is, what we'll do is we'll squirt a bit of oil in through the ports, and we'll crank it over with a bit of speed, and with any luck it will start to clear itself out a little bit. So I've put about 3 shots of oil in each port there now, right? So it sounds disgusting. Anyway, I better keep out of the way of that if I'm going to crank it anyway at any great speed, because I will get showered with oil. But let's pop the compression tester in and see what we get. Okay, guys, we're on the hunt for compression, as I said. So one hand is on the crank handle, this one here, the good hand, the one that isn't injured, and the other one is holding. Oh Jesus! Okay, we got something there anyway. Well, that is not bad. It's better than I expected it to be honest with you. So we have about 55, 60 psi of compression, which is passable in an engine like this, I would say. I mean, it's a low compression engine, so 60 psi is compression. So let's try it again. Okay. Okay, we're going to call that 55 psi. From this point, I think I'll leave the head on for the moment and see if we can rig up a coil and see if we can get this to actually start. Right, so I think we've achieved something in this video, but still a bit of a way to go. So I think at this point in time I'm going to leave the engine the way it is, but I don't know how obvious it is in the video, but those bearings sound disgusting. So either way, the crankshaft bearings are going to have to be done. Now, I have a set of bearings on that crankshaft there which I'm told are good, so we will see what they're like. To be honest with you, I'll probably change the whole assembly, leave the flywheel on, because I don't have a gib key puller or a jib key puller, whatever the hell you say, whatever way you say it. So it might be easier just to leave it like that. The state of play with the carburettor is it's in red oxide primer now, so that's drying. I'll give it a coat of green. We'll reassemble that. At least that's the carburettor done, and then we can start putting the magneto back on, with the intention of later fitting the coil. But what I want to do is I want to actually fix up the magneto. At the moment it's still like this, and the coil is obviously taken out and sent away for overhaul, but the actual housing, the bearings need to be replaced in this, and I have a new condenser for it, a new point for it, so I'm going to take the whole thing apart and fix it all up. So it's a bit of a project in itself as well too. So yeah, I think that's our next step. So we'll see how we go from there. I might just leave it together for the moment so we can at least try and hook up a 12-volt coil to it and use it just for the points to see if we can actually get the engine to run before we kind of strip everything down. Like, obviously I'm still tearing the engine down. But anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos, and I'll get them uploaded as and when I can. Cheers for watching. Oh, so what, you thought I was going to leave you hanging to see what I bought? Not at all. That's the full gasket set for the engine, which we will need. And this, I'd actually forgotten I had ordered. I don't know how I forgot I ordered it. A book. Stationary Engine Magazine on Lister D type restoration. I think this may well come in useful for me. So I'll have a read of this tonight and see how we go. Maybe it might tell me what compression I should be getting.